Good evening, everyone, and welcome to On the Wrong Lead presents Saratoga Daily. I am Mark, and I am here with the one and only John. He is JT Massey 79 on Discord. He also is JT Massey 79 on the Twitter sphere. He reached out to me a week or two ago when the meet started and said, "Hey, if you ever need somebody to hop on the stream, I'll gladly hop on." So I took him up on the offer tonight. And yeah, John, give us the 30-second, John overview. I know you're a reformed harness player, and yeah, what's your deal?
I'm a reformed harness handicapper, maybe not, because I'm still very involved in betting and harness racing. Home track for thoroughbreds when I'm living in Brooklyn is Aqueduct, though I've probably spent more hours of my life at the Meadowlands for harness and thoroughbreds than any other track. Used to go every Tuesday afternoon when they race thoroughbreds in the afternoon there, called by Davey Johnson, and then Friday, Saturday nights for harness during the winter and the spring. So very much track degenerate from a very young age, ever since I was in college, and I've stuck with it. But Saratoga is my favorite track, and I missed being there opening weekend.
Yeah, I also missed being there opening weekend. So I don't know if you were playing today. I know you had a nice pick four score a couple days ago. What were you seeing on the track the last couple days?
Looks like, especially on the dirt sprints, that the speed has really sharpened up, but that also might have been for the condition of the horses and condition of the class, and the classes that were being raced and how they laid over the field. The turf, with how they've moved the rails out, it's very much helped the speed along, as opposed to where we were looking earlier in the meet, where the speed was just collapsing. The speed's had a little bit more of a fighting chance the last few days from what I've seen. But then again, it's still better to be kind of second or third, but they're not really deep closing like they were early last week, where they were just swamping the speed no matter what was happening. That is, unless Jidu's losing his head on the front end. Then the speed collapses and everybody closes from Timbuktu. But other than that, it seems like the speed is holding a little bit better on the turf course since they moved the rails out on both of them, and on the dirt course.
Yeah, Guidu's going to
In the,
Guidu.
in the sprint.
Yeah, I was gonna say Guidu's gonna Guidu. He's gonna do his thing, and that's his game, and that's all he knows. And I don't understand why they keep trying to go that much distance with him and don't cut him back. But they're gonna do what they're gonna do. He was a rabbit in there, quite obviously. But no, I would agree with you very much so today. I think it was a weird day because the first half of the day it looked like unless you were on the lead, you could not win on either surface. You had to be the lead. So you just straight up bet early speed, and it didn't matter what anything was beyond that. The board sort of way overplayed that angle. We saw the last couple of races, in the feature, where a little bit of a closer came in. It looked like you were able to close the last couple of races. So it was a really weird day, and I'm wondering if right previous to the feature, because the feature was the 9th, so I'm wondering if between the 7th and 8th, or between the 8th and 9th, if they maybe lowered the harrows a little bit, took a little bit more cut in the top of the dirt, and made those closers a little better, deepen the surface up, because it was pretty bad as far as being a massively speed biased track up until then.
But I mean, also thinking back, you had two horse in the fourth race who was going to be odds on. Looked like not only good speed, but the lone speed. So there were a couple of situations early in the card where the speed also tended to kind of lay over the field. So I think that skews the perception of bias in a way. But even in the feature, it was the 2 or the 3 path. They weren't deep 5 wide, 6 wide closers. T Loves a Fight came from between horses and was on the back of the winner. So, I mean, it's not necessarily like it was the deep, sweeping, swooping close that we were seeing in the middle of the track, like sometimes we see on the Saratoga dirt course for the routes, not necessarily the sprints. But for the one-turn races, I would think that's kind of been rail to 3 path that has been kind of good, even through the meet. Even when the speed wasn't good, the rail was good, the speed stopped. But the rail, you could close up the rail and make up ground up the rail, and you weren't completely killing your chances by doing it.
Yeah, I know Chase talks about this all the time because Oaklawn is prone to this as well, where you'll get a gold rail and then you'll get sort of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 path are not good, and then way outside is real good. So if you're coming down and if you do that swing wide around the corner, go wide, go on the outside fence and run down out there. Don't try to run that 4-5-6 and tuck in, and it's just not a good place to be down the middle of the track. So yeah, no, I would very
The
much
Kelsey
agree.
Hart close where you look like you're going by the grandstand and you're going to grab a hot dog on the go. Like, how is this horse closing in the 15 path? And it's like, well, that's live. If you somehow venture out there,
I don't know
like an
if you
Australian race where all of a sudden they're passing, they're on either end.
yeah, I don't know if you
They're
ever
gigantic holes.
I don't know how long you've been watching Thoroughbreds for, but if you ever watched Uncle Mo got run down by Caleb's posse in that would have been 6 or 8 years ago at Saratoga. It was in the King's Bishop. I think King's Bishop or Amsterdam. I can't remember which of the two it was.
I think it was the
it was at the
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. And Caleb's posse, I was standing on the rail and I could have just about reached out and touched him. He was absolutely on the outside rail, and it was, and Uncle Mo never saw him coming, quite honestly, and he got nailed at the line. But that cost me quite a bit. Maybe why it sticks in my head. But yeah, let's get talking this Friday card. I know you had some opinions later on in the card, and we can probably get there, but we were both kind of chit-chatting this maiden race, and I thought it was good stuff, so I said, let's get the camera on and actually talk through this. This third race is really interesting. It's a 1 3/8 maiden on the turf, on the inner. So it's a 3-turn maiden race, and sees a Pletcher horse. This is this 3-horse, Prairie Wings. They paid $800,000 for this horse. It's a Shadwell-owned horse. Obviously, the intention here was not to end up with a turf horse. They thought this was going to be a classic distance filly, quite obviously, and it just hasn't panned out. She's kind of been flat. She's a little camera shy. She's been second 3 times in a row. Buyer figs haven't really improved. It seems that this is one of those moves where you're either playing the angle that, okay, she wanted turf all along, the turf is in the pedigree, and this moves her forward, or the other angle is this is a desperation play, and at 7-5 on the morning line, you're probably going to get 4-5. When this actually goes. Is this a horse you really want to get behind?
Personally, no. The Tappet horse, a 3-year-old Tappet filly. I'm kind of wondering where the head is on that one, because Tappets can be, what's the word I can use? Precocious.
Head cases. Head cases is what you're looking for.
Yeah. That's, yeah. So, wondering about that, and looking at 1 mile races from Gulfstream, that would be coming out of the chute. So then you're talking about 1-turn race on the dirt. Okay, the last one's on the slop. Maybe didn't take to the mud. Maybe didn't like the kit back when coming from a crowd. Maybe excuses. But when you start looking at a horse that's probably going to be in the even money, definitely under 2-1, probably closer to even money. When you're looking at and going maybe excuse, but then trying turf for the first time off the big purchase, now going from a 1-turn dirt race to a 3-turn turf race. The pedigree is there, but do I want to be taking that risk at a 1 3/8 with a lot of question marks, let alone adding the 3 furlongs in distance and preparing for this race, when I think there are better options elsewhere in this field?
Yeah, I was going to say, you'd mentioned some of those options, and one of them actually is very interesting to me. This 4 Empire Lady for Jimmy Toner is one you had mentioned. Do you want to talk this one up?
Well, I'm going to talk this one up because when I look at a Galileo mare by Lady Bingo, who's a Galileo mare, and then Empire Maker as the sire, to me, there's absolutely no question in the distance of being able to go a 1 3/8. Really the first start off the bench on the turf in the last outing in June at Belmont, which was also, if we can remember how that Belmont turf was playing, talk about a conveyor belt on both of the turf courses. If you were trying to close in that field, you really didn't have a shot. So you're talking about 4 wide early, then with 3 wide around the turn, losing all sorts of ground on a track that really wasn't conducive for closers. Now going long, picking up Tyler Gaffleone here for the turf. Jimmy Toner usually spots his horses for Saratoga. He's a good turf trainer. So I look at the 12-1 line on Empire Lady, and I really think she's got a chance in this field to really step forward at the added distance and in the 3-turn turf race.
Yeah, I do tend to agree with you here quite a bit. The pedigrees there, both top and bottom. Obviously, Galileo is the best turf sire in the world. Empire Maker screams distance. They paid quite a bit for this one as well. Paid 260,000. Probably turf was not the intention here, but obviously that last turf horse was turf start was much improved off the Gulfstream race in February. And albeit the horse wasn't in contention, a lot of these sort of Empire Maker types. Don't necessarily have that punchy turn of foot. They're more of grinders, so they want to go a little further because they can sort of carry that speed and grind them into the ground. And I think I like the stretch out here. Jimmy Toner also isn't a trainer that has him ripped and ready to go right off the bench. He runs him into shape, so I would expect again another improvement. That horse needs probably 10 buyer points and is competitive in here. Wouldn't be surprising at all. And at 12-1, yeah, I really like that one. I like that one quite a lot. The other horse in here that I know we were both talking about that we were sort of shocked wasn't the morning line favorite is the 6 Sursum Corda, I think is how you would say the name. Ian Wilkes trainee. Obviously, Ian Wilkes apparently brought a solid barn up here. He's 50% on the meet. Rosario takes a call, who, in my opinion, is a substantially better jock than having Julian Leperoux up last out. I realize it's Keeneland. Julian does quite well there, but again, Constitution. I don't know about the distance on the top. But you got Sadler as well as on the bottom, so there's definitely some ped there for distance. Constitution obviously has been the hottest sire in the world. I mean, I think I'm sure you're on this one as well. Any other thoughts there?
Well, I thought this horse was actually going to be the morning line favorite over the Pletcher horse, especially because when you look at attempts at the distance or close to the distance, you're talking third start up on the form cycle. The jockey change from Leperoux to Joel, though to me that's not nearly as much of an improvement as the Chris Landeros to Julien Leperoux in Kentucky would be on the turf. I have no qualms playing Leperoux in the state of Kentucky on the grass. But Joel, you're definitely not losing anything when you're talking about the jock change, which is what you want to have. So I look at third up on the form cycle, has been ready to go at the distance, has improved, was able to maintain the improvement in the buyer from the first start to the second start. So I think is actually going to take a step forward here at the little bit of additional distance. The last workout, it's as a bullet, but I mean, I don't take that. I take it for a grain of salt, and I think it's just to sustain and keep in shape that's already there for the 6. The question I have is seeing how these turf courses are playing, how far back is this horse going to be? How fast is this race going to be where you have this question of who can get the distance in this maiden field? So there are a lot of questions with regards to pace and position in this race where I could see you working yourself into trouble just because it's a pack and there's nowhere to go because everybody's just mobbed close together. But I think, and I'm very surprised that the 6 wasn't the morning line favorite, just because there were fewer question marks over the horses being able to race competitively at the distance.
Yeah, I would very much agree with that. I would agree. I think this pace in here and where it's coming from is a little suspect. My thought is the 2 outside horses, the 7 and the 8, are both going to be the 2 predominant pace presences, and there's no sort of lone speed scenario here. And at Saratoga at a mile and 3/16, historically, it's very, very, very closer favoring. You do not want to be on the lead here. So I will say I do kind of like the 8 a tiny bit. Just from the fact that if, obviously, Brad Cox's barn has been terribly cold, but you're getting this horse. They obviously tried the 4 starts in the dirt. Nothing worked out there. They dropped the horse down to try to get a win, and saw quite a bit of improvement. That last out race at Belmont on the turf was much better. So they're keeping the horse on the turf here. I don't know if the pedigree really screams turf. Mineshaft on the top, Deputy Minister on the bottom. But it's the kind of horse that is going to at least keep him honest on the front end. And if the turf is sort of super speedy like it was today, maybe this horse can get the distance and carry him all the way on the front end.
Maybe they could. One of the concerns that I have for a horse that's going to be leaving from the outside in this 3-turn race, in a race where how they might necessarily bunch up, how wide are you going to be on that first turn? I mean, one of the issues that you run into in Australian racing is even if the pace isn't that much, are you hung the 2 or 3 wide trip? For how long are you? And if you're hung through the first turn, and even if you work yourself over, that's going to take some starch out of you for when you need it late, when we're talking about a closer's kind of distance at Saratoga. So I have a little bit of a worry on that. I have a little bit worried about the pedigree if this horse actually wants to go 3 turns on the turf. Definitely going to be present in the pace. Think going to be forwardly placed, but I prefer others.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we've covered the kind of main players in here. You good if we hop into the fourth race? I told you I had a bit of an asshole opinion, so I'll throw it out.
Or I can't wait to actually hear this. I want to hear this.
Okay, so in this fourth, we've got a 6 furlong dirt sprint. We have 5 players in here, and I hit a nice pick 3 earlier in the meet by hating every other horse in a race. And basically, I hate every horse in here except for one. So, first off, the one, What a Fox. Let me get the screen back here for everybody. What a Fox, Robertino Diodora. He's winless on the meet, and he has been absolutely ice cold. I get that a Radlands here, but I want no part of anything out of the Diodora barn. Joe Sharp, also the 2 horse, Lady TNT. Joe Sharp's barn has been absolutely terrible so far this meet. Sayers takes them out, but again, I find Joe Sharp a little suspect until proven otherwise. His numbers have been not so good since a lot of the drug busts. The 3 horse. Oh, hey, look, it's a Saffy Joseph horse. Another person that I understand his numbers have not been hurt as badly as some of the others, but Saffy's horses have not done a step of running at Saratoga this meet, and I don't quite honestly think he sent his best barn up here. And then we have the 4 horse, who happens to have Santana up. Santana is, yes, he had a win on the day-to-day, but it sort of fell into his lap as he was a massive lone speed. Santana has been riding, I don't want to say he's been riding terrible, but he hasn't been riding that well. So I don't really want to use Santana either, and that leaves me 1 horse, and that horse is the number 5, Pacific Gale. I find Pacific Gale super, super, super interesting in here. She's going to sit that right trip. She's going to probably Lisa Star. The 4 is your speed in here. Lisa Star probably goes. I think Junior sits a nice little pocket trip right behind. And I'm hoping he can hold him off late. And yeah, she's 0 for 4 at Saratoga, and only 2 for 11 at the distance. But in a race where I don't like anybody else, and also she's getting massive class relief off from the last 2. She's kind of super interesting to me in here, and might be the only horse in here that I really find interesting.
Been a long time since she's won a race. Over 2020, over 2019. This has been a long time, and my question about her best efforts even recently have been on off tracks and going on the fast track. So I do have, but then again, when you go through the checklist of what we did going through this field, I looked at this, and as appealing and interesting as the mile and 3/8 was, I pretty much had the same thing where I had question marks about every single one of these, such that the horse that I was actually looking to was, despite how ice cold the barn has been, is I was looking towards the Diodoro horse on the rail, saying, well, throw out the last race was a disaster at the start in the carousel at Oakland. That was so I chucked that one, and now I get Arad Ortiz up instead of David Cohen, who is usually first call at Oakland for Diodoro. So I have to understand that, but you have to be talking about a serious business, and that Cohen's been there at Saratoga for this entire meet, been riding Diodoro horses, and now on this Diodoro horse, we see Arad Ortiz. So that was where I was actually leaning in this race. Just if I had to have an opinion, if I wanted to go daily double or pick 3 off the maiden race where I had an opinion, I'm just like, I got this. And I'm like, do I all this race because I really don't like any of them? Or do I pick the one I hate the least? And the one I picked, hated the least was actually the Diodoro on the rail. So I can't get on anybody for something. If you have an opinion in that race, that's a race where you do it, because people are going to spread out because they're going to like, oh, I'll buy the 5, because
there's
very similar in the fact that
these are all very, very, very similar. Maybe you catch the first and the second race and you make some sort of opinion on a bias for the day, and then you make your play there. The works horse was Lady TNT, the 2. So there's a chance she might be in good form. But my issue there, she is 1-for-1 over the track, but Joe Sharp has been quite cold as of late, and he is not good second off a long layoff. So maybe she's tuned up and ready to go, but there's just feels like so many question marks in this race. I sort of went with, albeit you picked some holes in it, but I do agree. No, you're fine. I do agree with you. I think this is a race where everybody's going to go 5 wide. Everybody's going to use the entire field. If you're planning to pick 5, maybe you can do that and you can catch prices other places. But if you can't, do you just kind of go and say, geez, I want to pick this one. This is the one that I don't have the questions about. And I understand. I think, What a Fox, you're one, albeit the figs have been a little light as of late, but you're also, this is much easier company than probably the last 3 races. So.
But I mean, the buyer is low, but again, if I'm in the mood to just toss out that last rate because it was an absolute disaster at the start and just took away all chance in a race where she was already overmatched anyway. So it's just like, all right, throw that aside. The figs are still low on that horse. The barn's been ice cold. So as I said, this was my least hate, plug the nose, this is rotten, I don't like this race a lick pick in that race.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There. I did like some stuff in the next race as well, but I know you had a couple races that you wanted to talk about later on the card. I'll throw my plays up on the blog, and we can hop into your stuff if you want to.
Or we can do that. I liked I guess this would be race 7, so it's the kickoff leg to the late pick 4. The horse that really stood out to me in this race was the maker horse, the 4 Blanket of Roses with Jose Ortiz. One of the first things that stands out to me is the jockey change. Moving from Martin Garcia, who personally, as somebody who plays a lot of different tracks, I do not like Martin Garcia on the turf whatsoever. So not only am I getting the second start back on the turf off a little bit of a layoff from the Turfway Park and Gulfstream efforts over the winter, but I am getting Jose Ortiz back on, has ridden this horse before, and the Maker barn has been sharp here at Saratoga. The horses have been very well placed, especially on the grass. So I really like the spot that this horse is getting into, and I like the post position for this race. I think the race sets up. I saw that there was a little bit of speed in here. I hope that the horse doesn't get caught wide as it did in the last trip. I don't expect the horse leaving from post position 4 to get caught with these wide on both turn kind of scenarios. But with the speed being to the outside in this field, I really thought that I could get a nice, cozy, really third tier kind of trip between horses and go for the knife and close move where you're splitting between horses, not up the rail, but you're splitting between all the back of the speed as it backs up and staying inside instead of going wide. Because I really think on the turf courses also, you want to have the inside close. You don't want to have the deep 5 or 6 wide close right now with how this track's playing, especially if the rails are out. And this completely changes if all of a sudden we're moving back towards the fence. But I think that they're probably going to keep the fences up and the rails out until Saturday.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Historically, the inside posts, the first 2 or 3 posts on the inside have been really good on this inner turf course, just because you don't get floated that 6 or 7 wide. And the problem is with the tighter corners on the inner, if you do get floated wide, you tend to wash way out to the outside as those horses are trying to maintain position. And because of that sort of logic, I like the horse just to the inside. I like the number 3, Bad Beat Brian. There are some speedballs drawn outside who kind of have to send due to position. I'm assuming somebody like the 7 Gravitas and also the 9 Future Book are both going to be they're going to go. They kind of have to go, especially with the post draw. Now, if one of those 2 scratches out, it leaves the other one as low in speed, and all of a sudden, if somebody like Future Book scratched out, I would find Gravitas might be interesting, being able to walk the dog on the front end with JJ up. But assuming they both come in, I like this 3, Bad Beat Brian. Sayers is riding really good. He's of jocks that are out there. if he has a speed type, I think he's one of the best out there at rationing that speed off in a smart way, giving that horse the best opportunity to really show what they can do late. And I think he's going to be able to sit that, again, that sort of a pocket trip, be third or fourth in this field on the inside, and hopefully he can get out and make a run. Horse has quite a bit of late speed, so I think if he can get this one clear, he'll be in a good spot. And he has ridden this horse once before, and he won on the horse once before. So at a mile and a 16th at Gulfstream. So he obviously gets the horse. It's not a horse that I'm worried that he's going to have a hard time taking to. So that was my top pick. But obviously my other A was your 4 Blanket of Roses, who I completely agree with everything you said here. My issue is more, and obviously Maker's been on fire this meet. My issue is more, what kind of trip does this horse get, and does this horse get floated 6 or 8 wide coming into the stretch with a big, long sustained run?
I was thinking that 1, 3, 7, and 9 were going to be very forwardly placed in this race. The Rudy second off the claim on the rail with Carmouche, with Kendrick, so I figured he'd send. I figured the 3 would go out. I mean, if the 9 could be in this race or not in this race, to me that's a cheaper speed. 1, 3, and 7 are the legit speeds to me in this race. And I think the tempo is going to be pretty hot in this race. So I thought the race kind of set up for the 4, who I thought was definitely the best of the closers with an inside trip. And I think the 1 and 3 don't stop in his face like the 7 could hung out wide. So I think the 4 will have kind of the wake that he needs in order to get through and not get caught in traffic.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think of the closers, the 4 is the classiest by far. And my thought was, in a race where I don't know, we're assuming there's a lot of pace. We're seeing a lot of pace on paper. There's been a few of these races where that has not materialized. And in these kind of races with a bigger field, I have if I see a classy speed type and I see a classy closer type, I have no problem using both as A's, because I'm probably using them at a double or a pick 3. And assuming something stupid happens, we get a crazy early pace and it really sets up that closer, even though it's not been great, or everybody on the front end tries to go slow and get cute, and it turns into the best of that just off pace like we had the first 2 weeks. Gives me both options as an out, and that's probably how I'd look at it.
And if they loaf on the front end, and you're keeping the closers who tend to have a better turn of foot and acceleration, you're keeping them close. And when it comes to explosion, usually they're the ones that are going to explode right by, because they're not being shut down early on while you're trying to ration speed. They're just in their normal gallop waiting to use the 1 mood. So it's about the comfort of the horse. Also, trying to ration front end horses, they can be temperamental. They don't like being wrangled up. They want to just run and do their thing, and don't take away their best weapon on the front end by trying to be cute. It's not like that.
So anybody else in here you wanted to use, or did you have a play that you wanted to kind of play in here?
If I were looking at kicking off the pick 4, the 3 and the 4 were the 2 horses that I were going to use. And then I had 2 horses in race 9, the Coronation Cup, which is the feature, the 5.5 furlong sprint, where there seems to be a ton of speed again signed on, which you expect in a 5.5 furlong sprint. You would hope that it materializes. So I really thought that race set up for the Mid-Atlantic Shipper, the 4-horse Miss J. McKay, and the 9-horse She's My Type with Joe Rosario for Christophe Clement. Those are the 2 horses in race 9 that I really thought. So in race 7 and race 9, having 2 horses, the front end and the closer in race 7, and then race 9 really having the 2 closers that I thought would be just set up with how much speed is signed up for that race in the feature, the Coronation Cup.
Yeah, completely agree with you on both the 4 and the 9. I think, I'm not quite sure how the lines will work out here, but I think both of those 2 are extremely usable. And you sort of took my sort of approach. She's My Type is the best closer in this, the classiest closer in this. She's almost got it done in the Lady Shipman last out. And your 4, Miss J. McKay, who's going to be that forwardly placed type, and Jose is just really great at sneaking those just off the pace type of trips. And obviously he had other options in this race, and he stays here, so that probably tells you he's got a pretty good feel for this one. And I also like the fact that this is a no-name trainer, and Jose Ortiz decides to stay here, and it tells you that there's a lot of these guys, and I always refer to them as well-meant horses. And I realize this is a stakes; it's not really that classic well-meant situation, but this is that same sort of thing. This horse would, if this was a Mike Maker horse, this horse would be 2-1 on the morning line. But here you are with somebody who's a little bit less of a known trainer, and you're probably going to get a little bit of price, even if you wanted to take a stab here. I mean, 5-1 on the morning line. I think that's actually win bettable.
Yeah, I would probably use it a win bet. I would definitely use in the late doubles. I think there's really, with how I see the race playing out, I could be completely wrong, and the race might not shape up as I think it was, which is also another reason I'm using the 4. Because I don't think the 4 is going to be nearly as far back as the 9. But in these 5.5 furlong turf sprints, I don't mind being wide, because you know what? Usually means I'm sustaining the speed better. I got the one move. I can tip off cover, and I just get the free run in the stretch and hope that pans out, despite the fact that the crown of the track has been relatively dead and dry for on these turf courses, even on the Mellon.
By the way,
it's been a little bit annoying.
We've dropped like every harness term you could possibly want into the past 30 minutes. We got tip off cover, we got pocket trips, we got I think on the engine. I mean, this is good. This is bringing the harness terms home.
Well, turf racing and harness racing are very similar. They're the same type of trips that you want. You're talking about speed. You're talking about rating the speed. You're talking about the pocket. You don't want to be first up. You don't want to be stuck wide throughout. You want to have cover. I mean, you want all these things. It's the same type of racing. And that's why my migration from harness racing went to turf racing first before dirt, which is speed. A lot of speed, especially on a lot of these other tracks. Saratoga, not necessarily as much all the time. But when you look at these other meets and just how good speed is, and it's just, let's get to the lead in the short field and go 46-2 and try to catch me.
Yeah, no.
Usually the track helps them.
Yeah, normally the track does help them. No, very much agreed. So, John, thank you so much for the time. It was a pleasure. Definitely have to get you back on later on in the meet. And for everybody out there watching, I will try to get John's plays, his late pick 4 that he's going through here. If he wants to make it public, we'll throw it up on the blog. If he doesn't want to, he can talk about it with you in Discord. You can shoot him a PM. He is JT Massey 79 on the Twitter. Give him a like, so get him some followers. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and good luck with the races.